So this changes everything. This is the Apple iPhone. And the shift here is so tremendous that I need to take a second to talk about it. You know, Apple, since the introduction of the iPhone, has really transformed their business. They were a computer manufacturer. But take a look at this chart that was recently published on Business Insider. Apple revenue today, the iPhone accounts for more than half of Apple's revenue. And the iPad, which is a product that's only a little bit more than a year old, the iPad accounts for more revenue than all of Apple computers. Think about that. In just a year, this tablet computer has supplanted the revenue for what used to be their primary product offering. iPad revenue is so big, it's actually bigger than all of Dell's personal computer business. It's an amazing thing for a product that didn't exist a year and a half ago. And not surprisingly, every company in the personal computer space is scrambling to keep up. Now, they haven't been very successful, so there have been a series of attempts to offer some kind of iPad clones from various companies. Most recently, in a kind of ghastly marketing spectacle of incompetence, HP blundered tremendously with WebOS and their touchpad tablets. So I wouldn't say that Apple's competition has managed this very adroitly, but we know competition will occur. We know that the new Honeycomb tablets will be on the market this year. What's interesting is a year ago, I was looking at the tablet market, and I made a prediction that they would sell between 50 and 70 million tablets this year, 2011. And people laughed at me at the time. They said, you're crazy. There's no way. This is a brand new product. What's the demand? What's it for? It's a toy. It's not really a productivity device. I just read yesterday that we're on track to sell 58.7 million tablets this year. So actually, that was a pretty accurate guess. And that number will increase next year. So tablets are really starting to crowd out netbooks and even laptop computers. And you probably are experiencing them. I'm sure half the people in the room have a tablet. There's no question in my mind that the white-hot center of innovation is mobile right now. And mobile drives everything. The idea of apps, the idea of mobile stores, the idea of customization, these things are driven by mobile developers, and they're all driven by this gigantic shift towards mobility. Think about this. When we think of the vanishing point, how things are gradually disappearing as they move into the digital space, nothing's driven that process more than your mobile phone. So 10 years ago, your mobile phone replaced your landline. It started to replace your telephone book, maybe your calendar. Perhaps it would also include things like your email and replace your pager, right? We got used to that phenomenon. We didn't think too much about it. And we really didn't think too much about it when the people who were developing these phones also included a calculator or a clock. We kind of took it for granted. It was easy to do. It was easy to add that in. But then gradually, more devices, as the phone got more and more capable, more devices got virtualized, more devices got vaporized, hit that vanishing point and got absorbed into your cell phone. So things like media players, your iPod, your Game Boy, your GPS system, and then more recently, content creation tools. This is really the business I was in at Packet Video. We were in the video business, putting video on mobile phones, but we also pioneered the ability to encode, to capture video on a mobile phone. That was revolutionary and radical. And today we're starting to see the impact of that. Not just in videos like the one of the tsunami that I shared with you, but also all the video that's coming out of war-torn regions and areas like the Maghreb right now where the Arab Spring is occurring. People are capturing video with their cell phones and they have the ability to upload it instantly. So we see a massive shift in consumer behavior that also drives the creation of more information, the ubiquity of these mobile devices. So in just a span of 10 years, we've seen about 25 different devices get vaporized, dematerialized, and turn into an icon on your cell phone. Is there any possible doubt then that the next phase of the mobile phone development will start to eliminate things like airplane boarding passes, the keys that you use to get into your office, or the key that you use to start your car, your credit cards in your wallet, maybe your entire wallet? This has been a goal of the mobile industry for more than 10 years. In 2000, I was working with Nokia, and at that time, they showed me some research they had done all over the world, about 13 or 14 countries around the world. They asked people, what are the 10 things you can't leave home without, the top 10 things that you take with you? And so the first 5 were pretty consistent. Keys is number 1, your wallet is number 2. It varies a little bit between men and women, but generally speaking, you need the keys to get back into your house. You need the wallet in order to pay for things. And the cell phone was usually number 3 or 4 for people. And then beyond 0.5, then it kind of varied by country a little bit there. But in those top 5, the cell phone was always number 3 or 4. And so obviously the folks at Nokia sat there looking at that going, how can we replace the wallet and how can we replace the key? That's underway in a big way right now. I'm going to talk a little bit more in a second, but I just want to touch on some of the things we're going to see today. So the big trend right now is the merging of our social media and our mobile media. That is a gigantic shift that's underway right now, and our other speakers are going to talk a little bit about that. You're going to start to see digital overlays, because it turns out there actually is a digital layer of information that surrounds every single object and every single building in our world. We just can't see that yet. And increasingly, our cell phones are becoming that kind of magic decoder ring that pulls that information into focus. So your cell phone is now a way for you to view those information layers. And there's all sorts of different kinds of information. There can be price information, availability, map and location information, people information, who's near you, and so forth. And you probably have experienced many of these things on your smartphone already. And so we're starting to see that process where people adapt this and become very accustomed to the idea that they're able to pull in all that information that was dematerialized, that was decoupled from the physical world. They're now able to access that wherever they are, whenever they are in a place. That's a gigantic behavioral shift. And it doesn't just work with the present day. We're seeing companies like HistoryPin that are starting to build digital overlays of what was there in the past. So as you walk around a town, you can use your GPS coordinates in your phone and start to see an image superimposed on the place that you are, so you can see what the world was like before you were there. And many of these projects are open source and they're crowdsourced, so they enable people to actually contribute and participate. So people are uploading their own photos from their family archive, and we're starting to create a virtual overlay of what was in our city before, a virtual archive, if you will. And gradually, these digital overlays, this information will show up in our entertainment media. And so we'll start to have more context-sensitive and location-sensitive and data-sensitive applications like games. We're just at the beginning of this. There's a lot of encumbrance in mobile. There's a lot of friction in mobile that makes it difficult to unite all these things. So far, activities like alternate reality gaming or augmented reality, they haven't played nicely together. But I'm thinking that we're going to see some examples shortly from our other speakers that will show us how these things have progressed, show us how it's going to start to get woven together. I'm particularly excited by one technology that I want to take just another minute to share with you. So the issue for most mobile developers has been that you couldn't easily access things like identity, payment systems, access cards, to access the access key card that you use to get into your office and so forth. For security reasons, these were all separated. But now there's one ring to rule them all. It's going to unite them. NFC, near field communication. This is a real thing. This is coming out this year. So the first NFC phones are in the market. They've been in Asia for a little while. They're now in the market in Europe. And actually, I'm hearing reports of some very interesting applications of near field communications. We could spend a tremendous amount of time on this. I'd recommend instead that you just pay attention to the term and go search it and learn about it later. Perhaps other speakers can address it today. The way NFC works is it's much like that Bump app if you have Bump on your Apple iPhone. The idea is it's very close, about 4 centimeters proximity. And you take your cell phone, and if you bump it, you tap it on for instance, on a credit card terminal, you'll be able to use your cell phone like a credit card, and the charge will happen on your credit card, but you don't need a credit card anymore. It'll happen through your cell phone. And what you'll do is you'll tap it and then instantly pair. You can also use it the way you can use it to replace that cumbersome pairing process that you have for Bluetooth. So for instance, if you want your cell phone to work with your car, same thing, your car dashboard, you'll tap your cell phone against your car and it'll instantly pair it. I could also do this with a friend. If I want to share contact information, I can tap my phone against their phone and thereby create a connection, and I can give them access to certain information, share files with them over the local area network that way. And so this is going to remove a lot of the friction points that we have experienced in mobile. This is going to lead to tremendous advances for consumers. One of the concerns that I have about it is that the industry that's supporting this most is the financial industry. The credit card companies are all in favor of this. MasterCard, Visa, American Express. Also, Google is in partnership with MasterCard. eBay has acquired a company that is in this space because they have PayPal, and they also want that to work in this arena. And every single cell phone manufacturer and all the software companies. So about 150 companies are in a coalition to support NFC. And as I say, the phones are already coming out. The projection is that about 50% of the smartphones sold in the next few years will be NFC enabled. So this is a real thing. This is not fiction. This is not an idea, pie in the sky idea. This is barreling down the path like a locomotive, and it's going to come. As you can see from this chart, iSupply, which is a reliable predictor of research firm, they predict that about 500 million NFC-enabled phones will be sold in the next 4 years. So that's a staggering number of new phones that have this capability. But my concern about this technology is it's being presented right now as credit card replacement. And we know that consumers don't want that. There's going to be tremendous resistance. We know this because in Japan, they've had Felica, mobile payment system, for many years. But only about 15% of the people who have it on their phones have activated it. And the fact is, consumers are up to their eyeballs in debt right now, and they're trying to pay down their credit cards. They don't need another credit card. And my recommendation to the technology industries and the payment companies that support NFC is that they embrace content and start working with app developers to build consumer experiences that give consumers more benefits for the use of NFC besides credit card replacement, because that's a benefit that serves the credit card companies, the financial companies, and probably your cell phone provider. But that's not necessarily perceived as a benefit by consumers. Most of the content that's purchased on a mobile phone today, most of what's purchased on a mobile phone today is content, and of that content, most of the payments are for games. So my recommendation to the financial industry is get familiar with mobile game developers, because they're going to be the people who create the experiences that condition consumers to use the NFC technology in novel ways. Here's one example how that'll work. So the point I was going to make here is that NFC removes the friction points, the pairing challenges. You've seen these barcodes, these mobile barcodes. I find them a little bit bewildering because you need different readers for different ones, and so it hasn't really caught on. People are using them somewhat. It's a little cumbersome. NFC will bypass this. It'll be simple because any barcode that's NFC enabled, you'll simply swipe with your phone and it'll instantly connect. So you won't have to download a special reader or something. And all of these are all friction points that every single app developer has had to deal with. Things where it's hard to get the handshake, it's hard to get access to this information, it's hard to match it up, it's hard to do, for instance, multiplayer matching on a mobile phone. NFC will remove that friction, and so it's going to make it much easier for consumers to access these great new applications.